Hi everybody, we're the Health Tracker team. We've been working on a little project for about 6 months now, and something we've done recently is something called a Google Design Sprint. So what we're going to do is talk you through an overview of what that is. Steve's going to talk through a video about what we actually did, explaining what we did. We're going to share some ideas of where this could be used, and at the end, hopefully we'll have some time for some Q&A. So just to qualify, there are other design sprints. The one we're talking today about is the Google Design Sprint, developed at Google Ventures by a bloke called Jake Knapp. So that's the one we're talking about today. So a Google Design Sprint is used by Google and lots of other companies around the world. It's a very intense and structured 5-day process. So hopefully you can see on here. So you start with framing your problem, designing a solution, and then testing with real users, and that's the real key part. The whole ethos is about learning as much as you can in the shortest amount of time, so typically taking months of work doing it in 1 week, which is huge. We came across this about 2 years ago. C, Anthony and myself were working on online claiming for dental cash plans. So we wanted to try and do what was best for our customers. We struggled to get buy-in, so we took some key parts around user testing and we did a very small design sprint. The outcome of that was that we ended up designing something that was really good for our customers. And ever since, our focus has been on user-centered design. Forward to April this year, and working on this health tracker product, we had another opportunity to do something similar. So we'd done about 3 or 4 weeks of desk research to get some confidence around what we were doing. But you just can't substitute putting things into real users' hands to see how they actually react, see what they actually do. So we didn't have much time. We had about 1 week, and a Google Design Sprint seemed to be the best option for us.
Okay, so I'm actually going to talk you through what we did during our week. So you'll probably have noticed we're not going to actually talk about the health tracker. We're just going to really focus on the process that we went through. So if you do actually want to know more about that, see us afterwards. Okay, so Monday morning, so that's quite dark. It's fine, I've got notes, so I can read it out. So on Monday morning, we started by defining our long-term goal for the health tracker project as a whole. So it took us quite a while, but we eventually landed on, we wanted to encourage people to positively change their behaviour by providing them tools and services to help understand the link between what they do and how they feel. So that's our long-term goal for the product that we were building. Now, alongside that, we also had to work through what questions do we have outstanding that we don't know the answers to in order to be able to achieve that long-term goal with confidence. So as James said, we had a load of hypotheses that we managed to kind of trawl through some of them with desk research and stuff that was already out there, but a lot of them we weren't able to answer through desk research. The design sprint was the perfect opportunity to do that. So as an example of the questions, we've got, can we encourage people to positively change their behaviour, which is a key part of our long-term goal, and will customers trust us with their data? So again, for the products that we're building, data is a huge part of that, so that was absolutely a key question that we needed to answer. We then moved on to doing a high-level customer map of the product that we wanted to build. So as you can see, there's very little detail in there, and that's intentional. So you can see that actually it starts with the user accessing the service that we're providing. They need to register a profile with us, input data, they need to be able to view data, understand and validate the data, and that's kind of an ongoing engagement cycle. So it's just a really kind of basic customer map for the product that we're building based on the fact that at this point we don't actually know what the product's going to look like. That's the purpose of the design sprint. Okay, so on Monday afternoon we got along 5 experts from internally to ask some questions again. So that list of questions that we didn't have answers to, we actually picked 5 people to come along and ask them questions to try and kind of work through some of the gaps that we had in our knowledge. So as it just flashed past, we had Simon Holloway from a kind of end user customer perspective, we had Kate Thornton from a group customer perspective, we had Rylan there from an innovation perspective, Charlie Hutchison for finance, and Jackie, who was there from UX. We forgot to record her. So yeah, so from all of the questions that we asked our experts, there were a number of challenges that came back. So we actually turned those into We actually turned these into something called a how might we question. So for instance, Simon said that he tends to lose interest in an app, in a tracking app after about 2 days. So we then kind of repositioned that to say, what can we do, or how might we keep users engaged for more than 2 days? Kate has some challenges around customer data with the business that we're in. So again, we would turn that into a how might we get customers to trust us with their data. So as you can see, there are an absolute ton of questions that we had from those expert interviews. So what we then went on to do was to choose the most urgent challenges that we felt we needed to overcome, and we placed them against the relevant sections on our original customer map. So we then went back to that list of questions and said, what at this point, based on the challenges that we know we're going to have, what are the 2 key questions that we really want to answer throughout this design sprint? And they were, will customers trust us to use their data? And will the tools be easy enough to allow users to enter data in the first place? And then the sprint goal that we chose was to design an easy and trustworthy registration process, because really from an engagement and a data perspective, that's where it all starts. Okay, so on Tuesday, we started something called lightning demos, and this is where we looked at kind of organisations and products that we're already aware of, and there are elements.
Thanks for that.
Products that we're already aware of, where there are elements of it that we really, really like, and we think we can kind of take some inspiration from. So James is there kind of sketching some of those out. So for example, we looked at Strava because that's an existing tracking app, and we picked out elements of that. So Emil uses it, elements of that he really likes. We looked at the Domino's app because that's really easy to use. We looked at Ben & Jerry's website because actually from a brand trust and ethics perspective, there was kind of a lot there that we could pull on. We then went on to sketches. So at this point, we reviewed all of the output that we'd produced so far, so the questions, the customer map, the how might we stuff, the lightning demos, looking at other companies, for kind of inspiration to start thinking about what should our product look like. So we then went through a load of different iterations of kind of different ideas around sketching and designs, and we kind of had to start again and kind of go through all of that. It was like an afternoon of kind of sketching. And so these was, I think these are your notes. So these were just some of the notes that James made from all of the stuff that we've already done. So he's kind of starting to think around kind of ideas on how we can pull on some of that. So I went through all of that on Tuesday afternoon. Now Wednesday morning, we had our finished version of each of the sketches. So this is one from me, James, Anthony, and Emil. So we put them up on the wall. At this point, they are supposed to be anonymous, but I mean, I know what all the guys' handwritings looks like, so it wasn't quite. But at this point, they were supposed to be anonymous. And we then went through. So this was mine, very kind of pink and wording heavy. Anthony's was called Traffic Lights. James's and Emil's. So Emil had like a kind of superhero kind of theme going on. So we're all trying to design the same thing, which is a registration process. But as you can see, we had kind of really different ideas about what that might look like. So the next step was to vote. So we all had little sticky dots, and we just went along and actually for each of the designs, the particular elements of it that we liked, we'd put a little sticky dot next to it to kind of pull those out. This is really dreadful editing, actually. Did on purpose.
No.
Okay, so at this point we've all voted on the bits and pieces that we really like. So we then kind of pulled out the ones with the most dots on them. The plain white ones are normal votes, and then the ones with the CM on it are my votes, and they were like double value. So we kind of went through. So we went through and said, actually, for the design that we want to build, these are absolutely the really important things that we need to make sure are included in that design. So this then was our storyboard. So this is Wednesday afternoon. So based on things we say we absolutely must have in our prototype, this is, Emil's sat there, we're kind of sketching out. So these are basically all of the screens and the customer journey that we're actually then going to look to build on Thursday, to prototype on Thursday. So this is us prototyping. It's not particularly interesting, and we won't show you the prototype, but that's what we were doing there. So that was a whole day on Thursday. And then again on Friday, So like James said, the most important part of this is actually the user testing. So again, we spent a day on Friday. We had 5 people, volunteers that came along, went through our prototypes. So we had some specific things that we wanted to test on them, and they went through and did that. And then again, we also forgot to film those. And this is just a snapshot of all the feedback.
So following on from the great success of our first design sprint, we decided that we would do a second, more condensed mini sprint, where we took 5 days, which is already several months worth of work, and we wanted to make it even shorter. So we don't like to do things by halves. So we kind of skipped a lot of the upfront work that we'd already done. We didn't really see the point in doing it again. We went straight to reviewing the output from our expert interviewees, and then we did the lightning demos of apps, which demonstrated where inputting data is actually really easy, and then we went straight through to sketching, storyboarding, and prototyping. On day 3, which would have been normally day 5 in the full process, we did the user testing, where we had the users register, link a third-party app, which they'd done in the first sprint, as well as go through and trying to enter data manually in the new parts we've designed. We got some very constructive and honest feedback, which included what was the purpose of the app, what do I do after registering, there wasn't any kind of signposting there, and what do the icons mean. So we kind of gone through the whole registration process and then almost separately built a data entry system, and it didn't really kind of fit with the rest of the app. We saw this all as very positive, because it's kind of showing us what we don't want to be doing. But it did mean that we ended up spending an extra week after this redesigning basically the whole app again. The 3 key reasons we think this happened was because we skipped key parts of the process at the front. We didn't review the long-term goal, we didn't go back over the sprint questions, and we didn't review the customer journey map, which would have just told us exactly where we've come from and where we're trying to get to, and just bring everything back together. We also jumped too quickly into building the prototype, rather than thinking about design, and we forgot basic design principles. So it just didn't work as well as it should have done. The last thing, we split our focus, whereas we should have been trying to just do one goal, which should have been data entry. We were also trying to work out how we would visualize data back to the end user, which meant we were trying to do too much. All this just basically shows that all the steps from the design sprint are actually quite necessary, even if you don't stick to their time boxing. We should have skipped over some of them quicker, but still done them. So it shows the whole process does work if you do stick to it.
Cool. So a big part of this is what we thought at the end, what else can this be used for, or where else it can be used. Too far. So this is kind of what we found. It's all process over technology, really. And the health tracker for us isn't really about a technical product. It's just happens to have a kind of technical solution to it. So, I mean, this can be used anywhere. One of the good examples in the book is about a company called Blue Mountain. Is it Blue Mountain Coffee? Blue Bottle Coffee. That's the one we want. So basically, they wanted to give their online customers the same experience as they got from their retail shops, and so they got together and wanted to do this quickly. So they realised quite quickly their online sales were driven by the type of bean that people wanted to buy. And they realised that going into a shop, you had the whole experience of a barista. So they wanted to give that experience to their customers. And so they spent a week focusing their attention onto that, and changed their website accordingly. And that increased their sales, rocketed overnight, really. And we think that it can. You guys did a sprint as well on IDD as well, which is like a regulatory requirement. So it just shows you it's all about the customer focus. It's not really about the technical solution. It's where you have a customer need, there's a blockage that you want to fix quickly. You get a really good team together. You can get that need solution quickly. So I think you could probably use this across the whole company when it comes to things like customer retention or online sales or things like that. Wherever there's a process where you need a quick decision and you want to get away committees taking ages to decide how to do it. And wherever you just need to set the direction before you plough into something. As James mentioned earlier, we're quite good at going into a solution, building it, and then realising it's probably the wrong thing when it's too late. This really helped us to get over that. So yeah, I mean, get hold of a book, buy it. We're not on commission yet, I promise. But that's pretty much it from us, really. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask?
What do you find most challenging about following the format of the sprint?
I think letting go of the decision making for us. I think I was going in thinking this is going to be really difficult to let go, but actually once you do, then it's okay. But you have to get over that hurdle of, no, you kind of let one person take that burden. Don't know what you guys think.
I think some of the parts make you feel quite uncomfortable. You are kind of standing up and trying to defend your own view in some parts of it. But also I think there's steps that you might not see the point of.
Sketching.
So one of the sketch steps is you do, they call it crazy eights. You take an A4 piece of paper, fold it into 8, and you're meant to come up with 8 different designs, but I couldn't come up with 8 different designs. So it seems a bit pointless. I think I'd already skipped that part anyway. I'd already got to kind of my 2 or 3 end designs. So with things like that, it's quite hard. But if you do them, then it can kind of trigger new thoughts and new solutions.
Yeah, I think because we went into it, we've been talking about this for a long time. I think we probably all in our head had what the product is gonna look like. The point of the design sprint is almost to throw that away and build something actually that's being tested. So yeah, so I think for me it was just about kind of letting go of what was in my head that we were going to build and just really go with the process and kind of see what you came up with. Yeah.
Got a quick question. Obviously, I'm a massive advocate of this particular process, having done one and seeing the value that it offers. Apart from obviously this, how do you kind of pitch this, or do you have any words of wisdom to kind of pitch this kind of idea to different areas of business? Because when you mention things like Google Design Sprints and stuff like that, and it's outside of someone's world, they tend to think of it as a bit of a wishy-washy, creative, airy-fairy kind of thing that it's very difficult to put. Are there any sort of tips that you give to kind of show, upfront, other than having to do this?
No, I think it's a case of, I think there have been a few successful ones that have happened, and I really think it's where we see the value in it. I think it's all of our responsibility to make sure that we're sharing it. So for instance, we're documenting everything on Confluence, so I think, yeah, it's just about promoting that. I think this is great. I'm really pleased that we've been asked to kind of come here and talk about it. Again, the same from you. If you've had a positive experience of it, I would just encourage you to kind of share that. Or actually, if you come across a situation where you think this can be used successfully, kind of put it on the table, I would say. Got any thoughts on how we're gonna?
I think I think buy-in's probably the key thing you're going to try and get. I think we were lucky because we were essentially autonomous, so it was okay for C to take on that decision making, and kind of there was nothing to be able to take that away. I think if you're dealing with lots of stakeholders, that might become difficult because, as the book explains, there's times where somebody who's not fully bought in comes in after and says, okay, that's all very nice, but I don't agree. And the book explains when that happens, that's it, that it kills the sprint, it's dead. Yeah, it's one of those things that the whole idea is that it becomes difficult to argue with because you actually have evidence to back up what you're saying. That doesn't stop people from arguing with it.
The book recommends that there's only one decision maker. If there are sort of more than one interested party that wants to make a decision, what is kind of the ground rules for that?
That there isn't more than one decision maker, just end of. So for me, I was the designated decision maker for this, but I absolutely listened to opinions and we had discussions and we had debates. When the facilitator said, it's time for a decision, that was it. It was, I take everything on board, but that was it, decision made, move on.
That's quite uncomfortable as well, and it's really refreshing when you do it. You're so used to being in massive meetings with loads of people that go, well, you have to take it offline and go and discuss it in another meeting, and yeah, it's quite cool.
Can I give a thing? So we had that issue, whereas we had a person who was in charge of a particular senior leader, they're not going to have 5 days to take out of the office and sit in design sprint. So you can kind of said, well, if we get some agreement on sort of a proxy decision maker, use that as a port of call, so you still have a decision maker as well throughout that time, but they're sort of governed by a pre-agreed sort of format, which seemed to work quite well.
It's about the right person rather than the level they're at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and having, if you have lots of stakeholders, that's where the Ask the Experts comes in quite well. You still need to know what's in their head. You still need to know that information. They don't have to be engaged all the way through. And actually, even for a decision maker, like Carl said, they don't have to be there all the time. It's like key points that they have to be there to kind of take in what the rest of the team's done and all the work they've done, and then be the person that takes the burden to make that decision. I don't know if it is a burden for you, but I wouldn't want to do it.
Would you say that you would recommend not shortening the design sprint based on your second sprint? Would you recommend taking the full 5 days, if not 4, to go through?
So
I don't think it's a case of not shortening it. I think it's just a case of making sure you follow all the steps. So that was the key takeaway for us, is that we skipped over almost the full first day,
Yeah.
which is where you're setting up your sprint goal and
the
what
questions.
questions you need to answer.
Because we were kind of saying, well, the long-term goal is still the same, and the sprint questions we still need answers to are still the same, so we'll just ignore that.
Yeah.
But it almost felt like we then lost sight of them as we moved through
You
the
need
rest
to make
of
sure
it.
you review them, even if you're not going back and redoing it, so you're not coming up with new questions and goals. Make sure you review them, make sure you know, kind of get that
Yeah.
focus back, because on the first sprint, that gave you the focus for the rest of the week, and that's what was missing for the second one.
When you're already taking months' worth of work down to 1 week, it's hard to condense that down even further. But definitely the first sprint you do should always be the full 5 days.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm trying to work out how to apply it in like the outside world. For me, I'm thinking that there's massive opportunities from a CI point of view to use it. Is that kind of what you're thinking? What?
Yeah.
It looks like yes.
Yeah, it could have huge implications in that area.
Yeah.
We can move quite slowly when we're getting to a solution.
Yeah.
So anywhere where there was a process.
We're kind of saying anywhere there's a problem,
Okay.
there are kind of elements of this that apply. So, like Emil said, I know it's probably hard to move past it being a tech solution because that's what we've done it on, but that's not necessarily what it needs to be. So it's just really about any business problem that you've got that you can apply the same kind of process to.
You can even kickstart stagnant projects with it. So if you've really got a big problem and you just can't seem to get over it, do a design sprint just to reinvigorate everybody and focus everything. Because after that, if you've got some things you just really can't answer, that's what it's all about. And most people aren't fortune tellers. They're not going to know what the answer is before you go and do something. So.
Do you think a design sprint could basically be wrapped around any particular business problem?
Potentially, yeah. I think you'll know pretty soon whether it's going to work for you or not when you're into it. But yeah, I don't think. Well, we've talked about loads. Like communication's a big problem. So it's kind of why can't you use a design sprint to find out where your problems are with communication, internally and externally? It'd be a great resource for doing that.
So one of the examples in the book is about it's like a doctor surgery, and they wanted to open up to families, so they were adults only, they wanted to have like a family space. And they actually opened up the surgery, did whatever they needed to do to the interior of it for one day and tested it. So even for just people process, or even if you think about what they're doing in terms of renovations, they could have done a design print on that to see how are people going to react to not having their own desk, how are people going to react to having a locker, and all these sort of things. It's all about people. A lot of what we've done is all technical. It's on an app, or it's some sort of technology, but you're still dealing with people at the end of the day. So it can. I think we all think it can work for anything where people are involved.
Your experience has obviously been quite positive. Do you find any negatives with this process?
5 days is quite a lot of time to give up, I think. That's probably one of them. Again, we're fortunate because we're full-time on the project, so we were kind of able to do that. So I think the time commitment is probably one of the challenges. As Anthony's already said, some of it is a bit uncomfortable to do. So I know this sounds silly. Making the decisions, I was fine with. But actually doing the sketches, I was really self-conscious of that because it's not my skill set, and these guys are really technical, so they like know how apps work, and I thought they were going to laugh at like what I was coming up with. So I think for me that was one of the challenges. I just kind of had to get over it, but yeah, that was a challenge for me.
Rooms was a tricky one.
Yeah, spaces.
Yeah.
So I know you guys didn't mention. So we had Thruxton, which was really, really good. It wasn't until the user testing that everything kind of fell down. I just don't think our buildings are set up for this way of working at the moment.
This looks like a perfect room for it.
Yeah, this would be perfect.
Not workable space.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely planning. I think planning we struggled to have actually all our ducks in a row, lined up in a row.
Momentum as well. For the first one, we couldn't get any users in for the first week, so we had to split that over a weekend, and we lost momentum a little bit. Which was a bit negative. We all thought, okay, it'll be all right, but you come in and it's like, we've got to now do user testing on a Monday, and we've been drinking.
Not on the Monday morning.
That was going to be my question, actually. So do you, before you go into this process, are you pre-planning for it? Because all of your Ask the Experts are all really busy people, and I can't envisage that you'd start a project on a Monday morning and decide then on a Wednesday that you need to ask these people and they're all available. So like, how far in advance?
It was only a couple of days.
Really?
I think we were, I'm not sure if it was luck or just amazing influencing skills, but we actually managed to get a great facilitator at very short notice. I think on the day we asked.
Oh, what, me?
Yeah.
About this. Yeah, I think it was. I got a message.
Yeah.
You messaged me.
Yeah, we need you. Come running.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, Donna, very short notice, she managed to free up a huge chunk of her time to come and support it. And again, the Ask the Experts, it probably was maybe a couple of days notice.
Yeah, it was a bit of wangling, and it's kind of like so much talk and things in the air about wanting to change stuff that people are passionate about trying stuff out. So yeah, they seem really eager.
Yeah.
Which was good. And maybe that might be luck and timing, but I don't know. I think at that ELT level they want to see something different. So Kate was really happy to give up her time. So.
Getting users was an interesting one. Because so we went for people internal to Simply Health. I think maybe next time we probably would not do that. But that's a lot harder than it sounds. There seems to be a little bit of red tape around doing that sort of thing. So yeah, that sort of thing you do have to organise. Actually, in the book it says during the week. You'd have to do it a couple of weeks ahead.
Yeah, that's it. The testing was kind of a bit belt and braces.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have a dedicated room to it where I sat like behind a mirror being voyeuristic. But the Wi-Fi was a problem, and it was just a bit difficult. It was a challenge.
And we did have support from the Research and Insights team as well around the user testing, so they actually managed to help us get testers, and they helped us with how should we structure the interview. So we definitely didn't do this on our own. There was kind of a supportive team behind us. But yeah, it was all fairly last minute.
Yeah, it seems so long ago now, but it was like it was such an amazing experience to do it, because I don't think we would have been able to kickstart what we did without it. It was, we'd have been still deciding on how to get emails into an app. Probably.
Cool. Thank you very much.